We're good to go.
Right, we are gonna call this meeting of the Board of Commissioners of the Housing Authority of the County of Monterey to order at 5:01 p.m. And we're gonna start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right, roll call please.
Chair Hans Luder,
Present.
Vice Chair Kathleen Delastaros,
Present.
Commissioner Kevin Healy,
Present.
Commissioner Francine Goodwin is absent. Commissioner Maria Orozco,
Present.
Commissioner Yuri Anderson.
Here.
Okay, that concludes the roll call.
All right, and then are there any additions or corrections for the agenda by the executive director?
Yes, just one. I had a PowerPoint presentation about the RAD properties. It was emailed to everyone earlier, and Gabby does have one that we can look at when we go to the executive report. But it is just another attachment to the executive report.
Okay. And then Gabby, are there any comments from the public?
Nobody in person and no one online.
All right, then we're gonna move to item number 4, which is minutes. I feel like this is usually the consent agenda, but is there a motion?
Move to approve the minutes of October 28th, 2024.
Great, it's been moved and seconded, roll call please.
Chair Hans Luder,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kathleen Delastaros.
Yes.
Commissioner Kevin Healy.
Abstain as I was absent.
Abstain.
Commissioner Maria Orozco.
Yes.
And Commissioner Yuri Anderson,
Yes.
and Commissioner Francine Goodwin.
Yes.
All right. We're gonna move on to item 5, which is reports of committees, and we're gonna start with the board reports ad hoc committee, and I'm gonna call my own number. We had an awesome meeting earlier today with Nora and Zulika and Commissioner Healy, and we looked at the development report. I think we added some helpful comments on how we can make that as robust as possible, and you guys did a great job with, they've got these little kind of 1-page thumbnail sketches of some of the developments, which you've seen in your packet, and we even punched that up a little bit more, but I think those are a real improvement, so hats off to you guys, great job on that. And then how about the development ad hoc committee?
We've been postponed till January.
Postponed, although, you wanna just give us a quick update on that work product that we saw in our meeting?
Yeah, a lot of great work has been put into developing what we had called the assessment matrix. Basically allowing us to get a snapshot as projects come onto our radar as to what is a viable project relative to our priorities, and kind of a selection criteria, trying to standardize across all the projects so that we can evaluate them in an apples to apples fashion. And I really like what's been put together, and I think Zulika, we said we're gonna debut that for the board at the January meeting for everyone to get a look at. So I feel like some really great progress has been made on that tool.
Yeah, I agree. I had a chance to look at it for the first time today. And you know, I was thinking back to our strategic planning meeting, and I think it's, you know, very much in line with what we've been envisioning. So great job on that one. That was you and Commissioner Orozco, is that right?
Correct.
Nice job. How about the policy committee?
The policy committee suspended our meetings until after the new year.
Okay. I think one thing for us to think about potentially in the next strategic planning meeting is to think about the committee structure. You know, we may want to go back to, for example, having a finance committee meeting I think that's probably important just organizationally. But I think these ad hoc committees have been helpful and they need to run their course, but just something to put on the radar screen. Okay, we're gonna move on to the executive director's report, item 6.
Okay, and let me apologize in advance for all the PowerPoints and papers, but I was trying to keep it a little creative and let you know where we at on different things.
You getting that AI going on?
I don't use no AI, I do it all myself.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
Thank you, but, for the executive report, the one thing I'm just pointing out a few things, so. One, we working with all the, different cities like Soledad, King City, with the Monterey County, different partnerships to try to expand our affordable housing footprint. And to get more funding for different initiatives we have here at the agency, so that's working out rather well. I had a meeting with the United Way, I didn't get a chance to put it on here, but, we talking about maybe starting a partnership with them. As far as, the housing counseling program that I mentioned before. So I'll bring that back once we have a little more things and work on that. PDM is almost complete. We're gonna have some revisions to the MOU. We'll have that probably for the January meeting. Because of some changes they made to the budget. And then the finance department, BDO, we initially said we were gonna do a 3-year contract with them, so it's time to renew for the first year. And so it actually already started. It was November 15th through November 14th of next year, so I want to let the board know about that. And then other than that, we didn't really have too much going on, so now I'm gonna go to the strategic chart. We had the strategic goals. You'll see goals on some of the reports, but some of those are executive goals and some of them are the goals that we set here at the board level. So what I did is just included the goals that we set at the board level so we can look at all of them. That way we can know that all of those were on track. And we're doing pretty good, but I put a sheet at the end to talk about some of the ones that's outstanding. And it's only a couple. So one I want to talk about in particular is the new mission statement. We were going to get together and hire a consultant to assist us with creating a new mission statement. Well, with the ad hoc committees and scheduling and stuff like that, we had not created, scheduled that time yet. But all of the departments have gotten together with their teams and created individual mission statements based on their departments. So what I want to do is bring that back to the board. We can look at that, see how that aligns with the overall mission of the agency. And then if we want to, we'll still go get a consultant to help kind of refine that. But if not, we may want to just incorporate one of those along with some of the HUD language and use that. Because that's really what the team put together. And we'll have those for the next meeting. So that one we were supposed to finish by December 31st, 2024. I want to push that one off to our 2025 calendar year. So that we have time to review the ones that the team put together. Everything.
I'm just gonna ask folks, so how do commissioners feel about, now that we're kind of sitting here and it's been almost a year since that strategic planning meeting, how do we feel about the need for a consultant to work on the mission statement? Are we still thinking that's the right way to go, or something we could do internally? And then how do you feel about pushing it off to 2025?
I'm not the commissioner, but I think we could do it internally. Some of the stuff they came up with and some of the things that I see,
Yeah.
but whatever.
I agree. I think, you can probably take a look at it and do it internally, and 2025 is a good time to look at it again.
Commissioner Henderson, do you have any thoughts?
I do, yeah. I agree. I think putting it forward to 2025 is good and having a chance to review everything that departments are doing. I think it might behoove us though to hire at least a facilitator to work with the board in like our next iteration of the strategic or retreat, and have that be a part of the discussion. So I don't know that we need a consultant to do it for us, but I do think it would be good to have somebody to guide us through so that Also, Zulika and other members of the leadership team can be really involved in the conversation that the final product comes out of. And I think there's probably, you know, as we think about reviewing this year's strategic priorities, their status, and what is it that we maybe want to focus on. I think we did a good job last year and we were very much in a triage place. I think we're in a different place this year that warrants some investment in supporting the board through that conversation.
I definitely concur with the postponement. I think, you know, maybe the first slice is something that could be developed internally, and then to Yuri's point, I think engaging a facilitator to kind of refine and develop a finished product using the foundational work that's been done internally seems like a viable strategy. So I think the hesitancy on my part of doing it internally is having it be a bit insular. Yeah, I'm definitely in favor of postponing the deadline. Because I think it's worth significant concerted effort on the agency to get it right.
Yeah, it's interesting, you know, my thoughts on mission statements are like, I think there's probably 10% of organizations that do them well in the sense of it's less about, I feel like it's less about even what you have written down than sort of how you infuse it into like the everyday of what you do. And so I'm a little bit leery about us, like, yeah, I wouldn't want to like spend a bunch of money to just write some different words. You know, but I'm more concerned about how we actually bring it to life. But yeah, I mean, I think having somebody facilitate that process is probably good, because trying to write anything with you know, a group of 6 or 7 people is not fun. So yeah, well, I think we've agreed to push it off to 2025, and then it sounds like a facilitator would be warranted. Okay.
All right, and the second one that I want to bring everybody's attention, we were going to create a policy for PBBs. But once we did the development assessment tools, once we really got into the policy committee, and then with us issuing the 1,000 vouchers, it became more of, we need to have another discussion about the PBBs before we just set a policy. Because if we have a lot of people that are continually reaching out to us for PBBs. If we create a policy, we can kind of lock ourselves into the way that we have to issue the PBBs. But if we do a discussion and look at the other tools and see how we want to incorporate it into that, and how many PBBs we actually even have left, because we're on the second part of that now with HUD, I think that'll work out better. And so that was something that in the policy committee, I think we mentioned that we wanted to work on it. So I just wanted to say we were supposed to do that by the end of this year. But again, it's kind of got wrapped up into these other committees and some of the other documents we made. So if we can just do that in 2025, especially when we bring that assessment tool, I think that'll be a perfect time to like segue into it. And then we'll have our official count too, because with all those vouchers issued, you know, every voucher take away from a PBB, and then we had a cap that we can use.
How do people feel about that?
Again, super important, and it sounds like it with the policy development component would be a good segue off of the assessment tool that's been built. So I'm in support of the delay.
I agree.
I feel a little, I feel like I could go the other way on it, actually. I feel like, you know, not making a decision is also a form of making a decision. And so when we don't make a decision, you know, and we're using additional vouchers as PBVs, you know, that is also its own decision. And, you know, to beat a dead horse, I've talked a few times about, you've got somebody that, with a tenant-based voucher, you know, we're allocated this number of vouchers. We can decide whether to make it tenant-based or project-based. If we have it be tenant-based, that family gets to decide where they want to live, right? And if we make it project-based, they are stuck in a particular property. Now, yes, technically they can move, so, but, you know,
But see, with the voucher issuance, we kind of did make our own tenant base. Because when we issued those 1,000 vouchers, it put us really close to our overall cap. And so if all those people come back, we probably gonna only have maybe like 100 PDVs to issue.
Mhm.
So we haven't allocated any new ones to any projects or nothing like that. It kind of been on hold. But just as we was doing the development and the development committee and looking at the policy and then all the requests, it just became clearer that we needed to really look at how many we actually have and what purpose we want to use them for. Cause we get quite a few calls from, you know, politicians
Yeah.
and local community partners. But really without the tenant-based vouchers that out, now we're not gonna have the PDVs that we thought that we was gonna have the issue.
I mean, this is another one where I feel like partly because we get so much pressure, it would be nice to have a policy to fall back on and saying, hey, the board said, hey, this is our policy.
See, that's what me and you, we normally be eye to eye. I feel like the policy gonna lock us in. Right now, we got more discretion when they call and cause if we do a policy, we gotta do a target, population. So let's say we just say the homeless population. And then somebody come with a fantastic idea for the foster youth or for the veterans or something like that. If we target that on a sales particular percentage, then we can't use it for that. Even if we was developing ourselves.
Because you're restricted.
Could we have a policy where we said, hey, we're gonna reserve the project-based vouchers for the housing authority?
Well, we can do that without a policy because they belong to us already. We don't have to give any out. So right now, it's just at our discretion. Cause see, let me give you another example. The Work Street project, right? They had 85 vouchers over there. It was for the homeless. It was one of the home key projects. They just had those vouchers for the last 2 years, never made any progress because they had all those issues. So when they had all the legal issues, some of the state and other people came back to the housing authority asking us to do certain things with the vouchers. We didn't have a policy. We just had what we issued it and they never fully met the agreement.
Yeah.
So we had the discretion to just cancel the whole thing and remove ourselves. And so once we did that, it did attract attention, but it let everybody go to the next step and it freed up the agency from being involved in like the lawsuits and all of the other stuff they had going on.
Yeah.
So I do think we really need to talk about it and like really look at both sides of it. But I'm just worried if we do it in official policy, we might lock ourselves into something that we don't wanna be in later. Cause right now, it's just our discretion. We don't even have to do PDVs if we don't want to. It's whatever the board decide. But we could say starting today, we're not issuing any more PDVs, they all tenant based, there's nothing nobody can do, HUD or anybody. But if we put a policy in place and let's say somebody go complain, we gotta send that policy to HUD. We gotta defend the policy with whatever background it had on there, you know. Well, now it's just whatever we want to do.
Yeah.
As long as we all on the same page about how to, use it.
What do you feel about bringing new PBV? Like if we're gonna go and give out PBVs on a project to basically bring it to the board?
Oh, I think it should come to the board. I don't think it should be at the discretion of just the executive director.
Yeah.
I think the director should be the one I believe the executive director should be the one to field these projects and look at how these projects align with our mission and our community interests and what developments and things that we have that we're trying to do. And then if it's one that does warrant consideration, that's brought to the board using that development tool that we talked about and stuff like that, so you can really see what type of impact it's gonna have. And then now too, we'll actually have our true calculation of PDVs that we have. So we can immediately deduct that from whatever our total is at that time to see what we'll have left for future projects.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think as long as they come to the board,
Yeah, I think so. I don't think it should just be like a one-person decision, because you're talking about something gonna affect the whole community.
Yeah.
And like a little matlock, so I come in with my case, like, come on,
Yeah.
Nah, but for real though, we'll have all the facts laid out, because you have to be careful with those PDDs.
Okay. Any other comments on that one?
Okay, And Martha, you were saying something
I
about
actually have a comment. I don't know if you can see my little hand there. Um, sorry. So I wanted to take it back to the question. I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So the matrix says that it was halted for further discussion of impact. So is the recommendation, Zulika, that we table the discussion or that we table the crafting of a policy? That's not clear from what you and Hans were, because you guys were kind of getting into the nuts and bolts, and I think we're talking about, so we're talking about like the timeline and the process.
I think we need to table the policy and have
Mhm.
further discussion and let that discussion go into 2025. Cause see, our deadline was the end of December 2024.
Mm-hmm.
So we can have the discussion in 2025 and then at that time, make a decision on if we want to have a policy or not.
Okay, so I guess my request then would be like, can we timeline when we're going to have the discussion? And I think maybe figure out the body at which it happens. So I know that we've a few times kind of said, hey, we've got the policy committee, and I know this is a priority policy, but it hasn't been discussed there. And it seems like it's a larger board discussion. So I don't know if we, if this happens at a regular meeting, if this happens at a special meeting, like how do we move this forward and around what timeline?
We kind of discussed some of it in the development meeting. So I think that information should come to the policy committee meeting and show why it should be a policy or why it shouldn't be a policy.
Mhm.
And after the committee review it, then bring it to the larger board.
Mhm.
I sort of feel like we should have like a broader board discussion to provide some high level thoughts on it. From like a policy level, and then maybe a draft could get worked through by the committee or something, but anyway. But you're basically saying you think maybe we just shouldn't have a policy.
Yeah, but I can see it on both sides, cause I know why you wanna have.
Well, the question is, maybe it's a nomenclature thing, I don't know, but initially when we had talked about this, we had talked about like the but-for logic of like a development's not gonna happen except if you have a certain number of PBBs, but we don't wanna over provide PBBs. Like Milestone came in and we're talking about
Oh, no.
100% PBVs. Now, maybe that could be just like general guidance that's non-binding for us as a board, that we sort of have the discussion and say, hey, here's kind of what we've agreed upon as general principles, but it's not a full-blown policy.
Yeah,
Maybe
cause
that makes a difference.
it do, and the milestone development is it's a HDC development. So that's one of our developments. That's why we're looking at supportive services and then looking at potential 100%. But when someone comes and asks for PDVs, we cap them at 25%.
Right.
The only time.
So I think that this discussion like really explains why we need to have a larger discussion, right? Because we can't even make a decision on timeline without getting into the details. And it seems like we need time to talk about it and to use the hypotheticals to help us understand. It's my thinking.
So if we want to agendize it just as a discussion in a future meeting.
That'll be good to have a discussion. I think that, I don't know, I hate to have like multiple little committees, but some of the information that pertains to why we should or should not have it, I ain't gonna say that it should be discussed out in the open, in a board meeting. So maybe if we could have like some little ad hoc where it's 2 people this time, 2 people another time, some, so we really can get into it. Because
Well, then you can create a serial meeting. It's not allowed.
PDVs are very, very serious here in Monterey County. And so in an open forum, we have to be careful how we kind of talk about what we do and don't want to do with them. So I don't know, I'll tailor it. We just have a discussion and I'll just put it together. I'll fix it so that we can have the discussion. That way everybody can be there at the same time, because other than that, it ain't gonna work.
I mean, it can be frustrating sometimes, but
Yeah,
probably need to.
I fix it. I put my little mat like on, I get it together.
So, could we do it in January?
Yeah, that's fine, that's when we was gonna come back with it anyway, because that's when we bringing out the matrix that we made in the development, committee. And it has a section on there that's strictly about PDDs.
Yeah, and again, like, I don't wanna get stuck in the. If policy is a term of art here, I don't wanna get stuck on that, you know, I'm just looking
Yeah,
for
no,
sort of some
If we have
guidance
a
from the board.
practice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay.
Commissioner Anderson, what do you think about that, January? Um,
Okay, so now the other 1,000 pages in my report. I did a PowerPoint on the housing program.
question for you, are we moving on from the strategic goals?
Oh, yeah, I just want to talk about those too.
Did anybody else have any other questions on the strategic goals piece?
I have one, but I don't know where it falls under. I was on something on this one. Is this one under the strategic goal?
What is it?
Is the CNAP ratings on the strategic
Oh,
goals?
that's coming up.
That's coming up? Okay.
I had a,
Just let me know when it comes, because I just have a quick question.
Okay,
yeah, I had a couple questions, I don't wanna.
well, we can do it now, because I was just trying to go over the PowerPoints, and most of that is informational to kind of let you all know, you know, what we looking at and what we doing. So if we want to talk about the CNAP, we can go and just jump into that.
So mine are just on the strategic goals and
Oh,
the
okay.
progress that they listed.
Okay.
So. Um. The landlord and resident survey, it says complete. Can you just kind of give me an update on that?
Oh, okay, so we have a survey. It is for landlords and it is for residents and Section 8 participants.
Is it two different surveys or the same survey?
We got 2 in Yardi and then 1 on the website that we've been using. But it's 2 in our Yardi platform. And so what we need to do is just, if we're not gonna use the one on the website, we need to create a link to the ones that's in our Yardi portal. And then maybe make them land on the Rent Cafe pages as well for the clients and then for the landlord. So when they open up the landlord portal, it'll be right there for them to take the survey.
Okay, yeah, I think it'd be important to have like a separate, like landlords are totally separate, you know.
Yeah, we'll just make them land on their page and Rent Cafe.
Okay, and is there I guess, is there a plan to like launch that?
Well, actually, they've been on there for a while, but we can send out some emails and let them know. To try to get people more engaged to see how it.
Well, I guess the thing that I was thinking of, instead of just having it as a passive thing on a landing page, was like, yeah, just send it to every landlord.
Yeah.
Cause you have their email, and send it to every resident.
Yeah, cause we got all the emails addressed now.
And it does feel like there should be two different surveys.
Okay.
And then I just, again, like, just quick yes, no, like the voucher briefings are virtual now?
They're a combination. It's some in person and some online.
And how does it get determined, like if it's in person or online?
Well, when they have a lot of people coming, maybe like 20 or more, they'll have a briefing here in this conference room. But as they go through the eligibility process for each of one of the participants, people who stay like in South County and stuff like that, they offer them to do it online. So if they want to do it online, and then they expedite it too.
And the RAFTA,
John's been working on that. It's online now. They're just getting the little kinks out of it, but we can't use it because we had already gave out the other vouchers. So they're trying to figure out a workaround to make the vouchers that we already gave out work with the RAFTA processing. Cause we kind of did it after the fact. But it'll be there for new vouchers this issue. And it's connected to the HAP contract too.
and that's the other question, the HAP is, it says it's an online process in here, is that?
It's connected to the RAFTA.
So basically, if I'm a landlord, I can, on a new voucher that's gonna come out, I can do the RAFTA online, I can do the HAP contract.
So what ends up happening is, as soon as we decide we're gonna pull them down from the waiting list, we say, hey, you get a chance to go and put in your information. We determine their eligibility. Hey, you have a voucher. At that point, you can either do an online briefing. That's what it's gonna be at that point. Online briefing. You will have a voucher number that you can send to a landlord. They will attach that back to us, so it's connected. And then once that person is leased up, the contract is done online between the landlord and our staff. So it is once fully operable, well, it's fully operable. Once fully integrated, it's 100%.
And it's up and running. The only thing is, we didn't know that we should have got it before we issued the vouchers. So now they gotta work around and let those vouchers be part of the process, but in the new vouchers, they're automatic.
And we're actively testing with some of the people that have gotten it, but we just haven't gotten it together yet.
Well, that's good. I remember talking to our previous interim executive director, and he told me we had the email addresses for like 12 families or something. We've come a long way.
Yeah.
Well, we have them for over 5,600 now.
That's good. And then last question was direct deposit, like are we universally on direct deposit, the landlord?
Some landlords are still pushing back, but we are actively working with them. I think we have, what, Jonathan, about 600 that still want paper checks and all the rest of them signed up for direct deposit.
Okay, great. Awesome. Okay, that was all my questions on the strategic goals.
Oh, okay. All right, so, Ms. Kathleen, you had a question about CMAP, we can just go straight to it.
Okay, my question was, let's see, I think it was on page 38, the CMAP rating.
Mhm.
And I guess because there was zeros and you had noted that,
Oh, okay, so,
just an explanation of that.
all right, with the CMAP rating, we knew we was gonna get a standard. Jonathan had in his report, he had 79 points, but we actually ended up with 78. So, we had two areas that we got a zero in. One was the annual HQS inspection, so that's the inspection for people who are already on the program. And then the other one was just inspection, so that's the new people who get on the program. We've been fighting against this the whole time ever since last year, because initially, the just initial inspections, they were not being done on time. We put a lot of stuff in place, we worked with the team, we got the HQS people assisting us, and we got them caught up. It was a 2,500 inspections behind before. I think now we down to like 300 and something. So when they did the annual HQS, you either have to be and did all your inspections or spent 95% of your money for your budget authority. The CMAP go from July 1 to 6/30. Every year, it's on the fiscal year of the agency. So when that time allotted, we had not spent 95% of our money and we still had about 300 inspections that needed to be due. So that's why we just got a zero, because it's kind of like an all or nothing almost for the school. But if you go past that time, we actually have spent more than 95% of the money, but it's just we didn't do it in the calendar year that they was rating us on. Y'all, you be sending me little signals, I'm gonna stop looking at you, because you know, I don't know what I'm talking. So, anyway, we doing it, we actually doing a good job, you should see a change in the next one. But because of the time frame that they use to assess the program, we had not did it by that time. And so now we gotta do a corrective action plan, which we already kind of got one, we already was working on it. And so that we can get those points next year. Another one on that is interesting to note too is the FSS. We have a FSS program, but they say you only get points for mandated slots. So we went back, we dealing with her to try to see when HACM first got the FSS program and how many slots they had and how many slots they have left. Because we have a FSS program that have almost 200 people in it. So we should be getting credit for that. But we not, because of some confusion with us in the HUD office. So we working with them on that. I can't even really say too much else about it because I'm not sure what the problem is. And Jonathan working on that.
Today I actually checked the CMAP and it's showing 94, which is the amount of mandatory slots that we had. Because before we submitted, I sent in a request to FSS at HUD, and they told us that it was 94, and that matched up with the numbers that we had. So
for
They
them,
should give
they
us
get
our-
to the point,
they
but
should
it's
get our
still gonna be a
points.
standard. It's not gonna be enough to get us a period, but we
It's just-
will get the point for it.
And that's the difference between 79 and 78%.
Yeah, so good, that'll be cleared up. And then with the pilot program for the inspections and the way that we spend it and the utilization we got now, we should get our points next year.
Okay, I just wanted an understanding of it.
Oh, no, when you see a zero on there, you know, you wanna know what happened. But we just had so many we had to come in from, because again, the original number was 2,500, and I think now we had like 370 or something like that.
And I did understand the agenda, in the agenda, there's some information that, you know, the staff are going through the training also, so that kind of made sense.
Yeah, so they did that, and we should be superior next year.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And so, for the housing programs report for Section 8. The Section 8 department, we just trying to like reimagine the whole department, make a lot of changes. It's a lot of necessary changes that have to be did. Some of the changes include staffing, different positions, but really what I wanted to do with the PowerPoint and with the program is have the Section 8 department mirror the life cycle of the voucher. Because in talking with the staff, a lot of them, they've been working there a long time, but they don't seem to always be clear on the life cycle of the voucher. And so I think that's where we kind of miscommunicate and drop the ball. So with the structure that's laid out in here, every time that the voucher gets to a vital step, there's a person there that has to sign off on what's happening. There's a quality control check before it goes to the next step. And so that way you don't have to keep going back or have files that come up miss, you know, all this type of stuff. Plus, it's a visual learning tool for anybody in the Section 8 department. Because it'll show them that their workflow is directly mirroring how the voucher is supposed to cycle through. And so with that in mind, we will have an eligibility lead person. That person will work with the eligibility staff to make sure that utilization is where it needs to be, make sure they're doing the briefings like they need to, and make sure that all of the objectives that have to be there for the voucher are met, because there's a lot of other things that they have to do that they have not been always doing. And they will sign off on it. At the point that they sign off on it, that's the point that you get to the rafter and the landlord. Gabby, can you pull up that PowerPoint? So then at that point, you'll have the landlord liaison and the inspection coordinator. So they'll work directly with the rafter, with the HAP contract, with the landlords for any issues. They'll verify affordability, and then they'll look at rent reasonable. And so when it leave that person, now the person is actually ready to be leased up. So this is when they get a caseworker. So that's when they go to step 3, which will be the HPS lead person, and they will assign the case to the new caseworker. So this person have continual customer service and care. The analyst person will check all the HUD databases to make sure that the EIVs and things like that are ran. And then all of this will get reported up. You can leave it right there. It'll get reported up to the HPS supervisor. So in the past, you had one supervisor and they had like 17 or 18 people coming asking them stuff all day. So now the supervisor will have the eligibility lead, the the landlord liaison, the analyst, and the HPS lead will come to the supervisor. So they handling all of the day-to-day. And then they are reporting to the supervisor, and the supervisor is overseeing to see where we got hiccups, where things are happening, but they're also part of the life cycle, because they're step 5 in the voucher life cycle, because that's where you have the abatements, terminations, other issues that rise to that level. And so they'll assist in that manner. This way, the director is now free to administer and oversee the entire program. And so what the director will be doing, making sure that we got enough special programs, looking for new monies that's coming out, making sure that each one of these persons in this position is actually doing what they're doing. And if something happened, you can go right back and say, this is where the eligibility lead person was supposed to do this. And go to that person without having to go through so many people to kind of find out. So everybody gets a little relief, but it's a lot more structure. It's directly correlated to how the voucher is supposed to go through the process. And so it should improve operations overall for the Section 8 department. And then another good thing about it, We need to add some new HPS because we got more vouchers, so we need some more staff. But we can actually add 2 more people and only go up $70,000 in salaries. That don't include the fringes, just the salaries. Because of how our salaries is kind of skewed because how long people been working here. So we can move around these people, add 2 more people and only spend the $70,000. And so because we have a union here and because this will require an organizational change, I want to test it first. So we're gonna implement it, test it out for a couple of months, see if it works. If it don't work, go back to the drawing board and make changes. That way, when we come back to the board, we'll have data about the test period, what successes we had, what problems we had, what changes that we have to make, and then have a presentation for the board to approve the actual change, the organizational chart. Because we don't want to do it preemptively. I've already discussed it with the union. So that's why I listed on that, our managerial rights under Article 6. And we can use temporary pay assignment 18.1 to make this happen and not be in violation of any union issues. We reported it, it's nothing that we gotta do until we make it permanent. And so that also let us work with the staff we have, get the new people in place and, just kind of see if it's a success or not. But I find a lot of time when we have fundamental issues in our Section 8 program. And when you have issues like that, it's just better to go back to basics. Just take it to like a basic level where even visually it's a training to you. And before we get to something more advanced. But we also still had a yardage system, so we going paperless at the same time. So it's really helping everybody. I even talked to the staff about it, get their input. They really excited about it. I told them I was gonna come to the board and we kind of go from there. But I think it'll work. But I just prefer to test it first before we say this is permanently, what we're gonna do. And so that's why I gave you this. And then I give you the finished product in a couple of months after we got a little test data to see how it worked out.
Any questions or comments about that from commissioners? I had a question. If I'm a voucher holder.
Mhm.
And, you mentioned at one point now somebody gets a caseworker.
Mhm.
Who are they talking to earlier in the process?
Eligibility staff is the first point of contact.
And then once it's determined that they're eligible and that they have a voucher, then during that process where they're searching, who are they talking?
Landlord liaison.
Is there any concern that it could be confusing for the voucher holder to sort of continuously be changing the people that they're talking to? But the benefit of it is they're talking to somebody who actually really knows that area.
Yeah.
But I guess how are you planning to make it clear to a family with a voucher that you're in
How
this
to
part of the
transition.
process, now you've been passed off to this person?
Well, really, they file get passed off. So when they in the eligibility process, when they get the voucher, they search and all of that, their main contact person is the eligibility staff. And it stay like that until they get housed in the unit. Once they get housed in the unit, the person starts doing all their communication with their caseworker. Because that's what now they gotta do their annual research, interims and things like that. And now all of that is explained that pass off in the briefings. So where the landlord liaison comes into play is when they're doing the wrap, but really they mostly talking to the landlord. Cause the person just turn it in to the eligibility staff person. Or, we'll have it online. And so they working on that person's behalf behind the scenes with the landlord, helping with the rent and things like that. But that person is still actively engaging with the eligibility worker who they got called off the waiting list with, who did their briefing, and they giving them all the updates on what's happening until they get leased up. And then when they get leased up, they get a caseworker, and that's their person for the duration of the time that they had a voucher.
So say I'm somebody who already has a voucher
Mhm.
and I basically want to relocate. So
Caseworker.
it's all gonna be through the caseworker.
Once you get a caseworker, if you get terminated off the program, if you move in, if you want to port anything, your caseworker take care of it. The only time they don't, if it's something that they have to escalate up to the supervisor. And that would normally maybe be like with a court or something like that. But other than that, the caseworker has all the tools to do everything that that family need once they get the voucher.
Okay, yeah, so basically, in a lot of cases, it will be still kind of one point of contact.
Yep.
Okay.
Makes it easier too when it's just one person.
Also keep in mind the rent cafe. It's gonna drag them through. And so the person that's doing that part of it, they're gonna be with it the entire time. And the one thing that we didn't talk about, that once they sign up, like the one action new admission onto the program, the letter that's gonna come
Oh,
is
yeah,
gonna
that's
have their
nice.
new housing specialist name, so.
Mhm.
It would seem like this would lend itself really well to tracking some data around the time it takes for each step of the process, you know.
Oh, and which we are doing rather than 48 hours now.
So that's good.
Yeah, so we went from 30 days. Well, any other questions about the HPS before we go to property management? And I did the property management, Yuri, did you have a question? Oh, okay. I did the property management that I already read, cause you know, they kind of bleeding us, but we working on it. Yeah, but property management. I've never seen nothing like here at HACM. I really gotta be honest with how they do the property management. So the way that it has historically been done here. There is this myth that a PM1 cannot have 100 units or more. I don't know where that came from. It's no HUD rule and regulation. It's not wrote down anywhere. You will never find it. I don't care what housing authority you check in the continental United States, okay? But for whatever reason, they was doing it here. Then they said a PM2 can have over 100. So essentially, what they were doing, you'll have one property, one project that's got 200 units, and you got two property managers.
Yeah, that example was crazy.
But it's so true.
200
Yeah,
units,
it's like, so
property management.
this one property manager is doing 99 units, and then this other property manager is doing 101. They on the same property, they sharing the office, everything. So they just separated the property. Now you got annual research being did at different times. Half of the property got good curb appeal, the other half don't. The maintenance people confused because Hans tell them he like this, then they come get them in. I'm like, no, I don't like this. The people are confused because they see they neighbor, something happening with them, but it's not happening for them. And so they like, we at the same property. Why is this, all of these different things going on that's causing these barriers? And it's because of the way how it was set up. And essentially, because of the salaries that we pay here, we have people that was making $80,000 to oversee 80 units. That's $1,000 per unit. The property can't sustain that, and that's just the property amount. That's not even the maintenance and all of the other stuff. So, and I already talked to the union about this. I told them this model is going away. We can't afford it. It's not feasible. It's not sustainable, and it's just not good practice for property management. So a property manager can manage as many units as you assign them. What you look at is the population they're gonna be dealing with, the age of the units, you know, does this property need a rehab? You look at all these external factors, and then you determine how many property managers you would need on that site. You look at the technology. We got a $300,000 yard system that do everything for us online if we do it. That's a whole nother person in your office for real, because it even got quality control. So we invested in that. So it's not feasible for us to have two managers at one site and a separation like that for the units. Because if you look on, and again, that ain't even including the maintenance people that's assigned to the property. So the property management staff right now is costing us about $1.4 million annually. Maintenance is costing right around 1.5. This is creating a per unit cost annually of almost $2,000 per unit. I think it was like $1,881.29. This is ridiculous because if the HUD, they put out a chart every year with property management fees and how much you can charge. And according to HUD, based on all of the other housing authorities and private developers who do multifamily, because we are multifamily now, we don't have public housing anymore. In San Francisco, most people paying $87.14 for property managed per unit for the month. That includes the maintenance and all of that stuff. We paying $138.95. So we need to reduce costs. And we need to align the properties so that they can be sustainable. Now, what we've been doing right now is looking at the different properties and seeing how they can be grouped together. So for example, I think I used 803, yeah. It had a property manager 1 and a property manager 2. But it's only 200 units, like 201 units. So instead of having 2 property managers over there, we only need 1 property manager and then maybe an office assistant to help with the phone calls and things like that, especially with the investment that we made into the Yardi system. And so we did cut out a whole nother person. And while doing that, we also making the property more efficient, because guess what? Now all the annuals being did at the same time. The curb appeal is being enforced the same way throughout the property. The maintenance person have direct responsibilities, and his role is easily defined because he's dealing with one person telling him what they like or don't like. And we also took these properties and we put most of all of them, they research only do 1 time out the year. So now you're the property manager for 12 months, but you're only doing research 4 months out the year. What are you doing the rest of the year? You got time to do curb appeal. You got, all you're doing is moving people out and moving people in, making sure your wait list is, did right and collecting rent. And you know the issues we've had with people collecting rent and the ledgers. So all of this, even though it's a person less, is really creating more time for them to be a better property manager. It's creating more of a cash flow for the property, for work orders and all of the other things that we need. It's not a violation of any union rules, any HUD rules, any of that. It's actually just taking it back to normal standard practice for property management. And it should make all of the clients happier, because it should assist with their customer service issues. And so on top of that, the changes that we talking about at the property level, which this is in my next report, but we also made changes at the administrative level. Before, we had a director, then we had 2 supervisors, then we had a maintenance supervisor. So we had about 14 property managers, I think. We only got 1,283 units. And we had about 14 property managers, and they were split up between 2 supervisors. So one of them doing 7, the other one doing 6 or 7. That's, and each one of those positions was making over $100,000 a year. So all it did was add to confusion, cause issues when we was having all our inspections done, and reporting problems. And the board knows that because you've been seeing all of the things that, been coming in. So now we have a director, we have an asset manager, 1 supervisor to take care of all of the property managers, and then the properties, we rearranged them, so we had a property manager and the office assistant. And so we're doing the same thing with this one. We're just kind of doing a little test, to see if it works, see what all the kinks is. We got 2 properties that already been doing it for like over a month. Both of those ladies say everything is going really well. They just have to manage their time. And then some of the tenants don't want to go online. So they got to be a little more concerned with, trying to assist them in going online so they don't have to do all the paper. But other than that, they had no complaints about it. And they also told that to the union rep when we had the meeting. that they liked it a little better actually, because now they get to make all the decisions on the property without having this other person and just conflicting. So the goal is to get us away from that $1,881 per unit and try to get closer in line with the HUD chart and just what worked good for our agency. So again, it's just a little test. We going through it. We'll have more information in a couple of months, and then we'll have some data to show like the cash flow before, the cash flow after, complaints before, complaints after, stuff like that, to show that it's really working. But so far on the 2 properties that we already started, it's been working really well.
Just for clarification's sake, I was looking at the slides 23 and 24, and I noticed a net, I'll call it a net savings on staffing dollars
Mhm.
from previous year to current year for the test. But I looked within the maintenance category and I see the overtime number
Oh, yeah.
stagnant. Despite the reduction in what looks like pay for staff time, so is that something that,
No, it is. It stayed the same.
yes,
We went down on staffing for maintenance a little. And we doing a little restructuring with maintenance. But the on-call, most of all that is did by the same group of guys.
I saw that, the
Yeah, it's all-
level 3 workers who are likely
Exactly.
the highest compensated.
The other people don't help out, and so the guys have to do on-call work numerous times throughout the year. When it's 16 or 17 or 16 of them, if they span it out, you can do it every 3 months or something. But the way it is with the level 3s doing it all the time, it's very costly for us to have. And then in the MOU, if they go out for 30 minutes, we're paying for 2 hours or something, right? Yeah, we're paying for 2 hours if they just go out for 30 minutes. So put that in line with the capital projects that we need to do, because we do have a couple we need to work on, and that's why that number is stagnant. I was glad it didn't go up, but we're working on decreasing it. And so that's one of the things too, to have more people be able to do on call. It doesn't make any sense for the person who get paid $60 an hour to go on call, when the person who get paid $30 could have went on call because of what it is. Because a lot of times they're not doing the repair, they going, looking at it and calling somebody else to actually come out and fixing it. And then we had to talk to them too, because when they go out, if they get 2 calls, that's 2 separate calls, but that's not 4 hours. If the calls was like back to back, so we really had to look at that too with payroll. Because sometimes a person will go out at 6:15, they get paid for 2 hours, they go back out at 6:40, somebody paying them for another 2 hours. No, that's still in your same 2 hours. So it's a lot of little things like that that we looking at, but we expect that number to go down.
The ultimate end game here is to try to make our property management team as efficient as possible, so we're competitive in the broader marketplace, which will in
Exactly.
turn help the agency generate more. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's a work in progress that, again, these are to illustrate like some of the changes and some of the stuff we doing. And then we'll come back in a couple of months and see what worked, and if there's some other changes that we need to make. I know some of this stuff kind of is looking like, is this real? It's surprising, but it's just the way that things have been done before in the past.
Commissioner Anderson, you have a question?
Yes, thank you. First, thank you for the information and presentation. It was really clear and kind of eye-opening and surprising. So, but my question is, with this reorganization and pilot, what wasn't clear is if there are actual people in these jobs that are at risk, or are some of these positions vacant that are just kind of being reallocated around?
Vacant and being reallocated. We don't anticipate, there's no plan in place to terminate anybody or, put anybody, lay them off, any of that type of stuff to make this plan happen. As we've gotten vacancies from people that have resigned, that's when we started implementing this new structure to see if it worked. That's why we got kind of like a little test period. And so talk to some of the staff about it, not all of them, to let them know what the end goals are and get some feedback from them as well. But we're not terminating anybody or anything like that to push it forward.
Okay, thank you.
I was just gonna say that I think it's awesome. I think this is the kind of analysis that we've needed for a long time, and I think it's just, it speaks to the fact that we're kind of getting out of the triage place that we've been in for a long time and can kind of pull our head up and say, hey, how can we really improve efficiency? And yeah, I think it's awesome. I think having somebody in the asset management seat that has, this is the part about bringing people in with the right background, right? Because you bring in somebody with the right background in that kind of asset management role, these are the metrics they're gonna be looking at, and it's just gonna jump off the page to somebody, and they're gonna say, hey, like, what are we doing, right? And then obviously, like, you've done that here. The next step, I think, is to get us to a place where, like, you have somebody else who can do
Oh,
this for
yeah, I
you.
just come up with it, give it to them, and they do the implementation, but then after that person get in there, they really take over that process, and they should be bringing this information to me. So that I can bring it to the board and have discussions, and we working on that, we doing a lot of training, and then with the people that we working on and recruit and stuff. It's really a culture change for the agency, because some of them just do not believe, like when I told them, even the young lady that's the representative for the union. I said, you do not limit your units like that, and they just couldn't believe it. No, this is the way that it's done, this is how it is. Show me the regulation, cause it don't exist. Show me in a guidebook, cause he'll have guidebooks too, where they'll suggest something, show it to me, no, it's not in there, because it's draining, you can't make money with having people getting paid to keep up 80 units or 50 units making that kind of money. My next one, and like I said, I do apologize, but I want to give y'all all this information. Let's go to the warehouse game. So the warehouse model, we had a warehouse back there. I've been looking at it ever since I've been here. And I'm like, what do we need to do with this warehouse? So first thing we did was a lot of the supplies, they're actually being kept on the site now. So maintenance don't have to come here every day. They can go straight to their site, and they got a storage area on the site with all of the things they need to do little readily, easily repairs. And then what they don't have, we can get a drop ship through Home Depot, HD Supply, places like that. We don't have to hold all that inventory. So that was phase one of, we don't need the warehouse to that extent. The second part is, a couple of years ago, the agency got a loan. It's about energy efficiency, and we have $320,000 left that we have to spend. I tried to return it, but you can't return it, you must spend it. But it's only allocated for the warehouse. You can't spend it nowhere else but in the warehouse. So we came up with what needs to happen in the warehouse to spend this money and to make it efficient for the agency. So, after going back there, looking at it, kind of looking at what's going on in the agency as a whole and the conditions of the Section 8 department, because when I got here, Tori was in the process of getting new cubicles, new flooring. We hadn't did it yet, because they couldn't decide on the cubicles. But it's good that we didn't, because instead of redoing that to that same model, the same money that it'll cost us for the floor in the cubicles, we can invest in with the money from the loan for the warehouse, and we can use this model. Gabby, put up one of the diagrams. I think it's
Is it this one?
page 61.
It's confusing.
Oh, I forgot. Cause we still got space on that, so we gotta talk to him. Me and Nora will be working with him with this. So we have a design that has offices. We do have to redo the restroom if we go with this, because it had to be brought up to code. And then the second design had cubicles in it, so it was 10 cubicles. But in looking at it, it was still a part of the warehouse that's being untouched. The ceiling and all that'll be fixed, but it's still some open space, so we're gonna go back and talk to the architect one more time to kind of get a final. But these are some of the proposed designs for the Section 8 employees to move from the offices up front to utilize all the space in the warehouse. The only issue with them going back there, and it's really not an issue, was the distance that they would be away from the front desk, because most of the people who come to the front desk come for them. But with Rent Cafe, with all the virtual stuff we doing, and then I asked them, they said they didn't mind just walking up there from time to time if need be for assistance with the clients. And so I think that if we do this, and it was gonna cost the agency at most $110,000, and we could transform that warehouse space into new offices, maybe some cubicles, fix the ceiling, make it energy efficient, and put to use this money that's been sitting out there for the last couple of years that we must use, while also boosting up the morale for the Section 8 department. Because at the same time, we already talking about like redoing the structure of their department and then giving them a new location so they can actually have an office. And I think it's really would be beneficial to move them back there. HDC, we got development and property management over there. They can stay over there. They working well over there. We would have the empty space up here for the, what Section 8 used to be. In the interim, human resources, because that's really the only people back there, human resources and procurement. They could come, human resources could go up front. Procurement to go to finance where they're supposed to be anyway, while we decide what to do with that area. My first thoughts was, I think the board need a dedicated boardroom. And so that's just one idea to kind of change and put the executive office maybe up there, have a dedicated boardroom and let this be a training room. Cause this room gets switched out probably like 15 times a day. Cause every time somebody comes, this is the only space they come to and the table's just kind of moving around all the time. But you know, at the same time, it ain't even no rush on that because everybody else got space and there's enough space up there to house the staff that's in the back right now. Cause it's only 4 people that we're talking about. While we plan and decide what we want to do next, but I think it'll be a really good idea to take the warehouse, transform it, and let that be the home for the Section 8 department. Maintenance is already not using it. We already putting the storage on the sites as part of the property management plan. And so again, this is just giving them space where they have their own office. They can do the work they need to do, and then we could lay it out as we laid out this new structure. And they all were pretty excited about it. I always tell them it's not a done thing, but I just want to kind of see if they even interested. So they all were really interested in doing, excited about possibly moving.
So is the preference without the cubicles or with the cubicles?
Well, right now it's with the cubicles, but Nora and I are gonna talk to the architect because he still has some unused space on here. So that we can get one more plan to make sure that his vision is in line with what we really needed. And then come back with a final number and why, you know, this one or that one. But it's still at the most, we're looking at right now, $110,000. And Section 8 has generated more revenue these last couple of years. So they could pay for it without it doing any type of financial hardship to the agency.
I'm no architect, but is there a need for utilizing some of this additional, what I'm envisioning as currently non-utilized space for conference rooms and for activities for the participants in the program and having meetings? Is that a potential utilization for some of this extra
We
space?
could, because we talked about putting a room back there for them, for when participants come in, because right now they don't have it. They just have 3 interview rooms up there, and then again, everything else happens up in here. So we did kind of talk about what that'll look like. And so when we come back after the meeting with the architect, we'll have 2 more versions to look at with the potential costs.
Because otherwise it would essentially be just dead space at this point.
Yeah, and that's
So-
why we said, no, we need to go back, because at the time, I think he was thinking we was trying to keep like half of the warehouse, but that was not the direction that we're going in, so we're gonna have him come back out and look at it again. And then one thing, what I really like about it, you guys don't really be in the warehouse. I took Miss Maria back there one time. The warehouse is true to whatever the elements is. If it's cold outside, it is freezing in that warehouse. If it's hot outside, it's extremely hot in there, so that's not good for the employees that are back there. And then this will take care of that, and it'll go into the energy efficiency of it, so it'll just be a much better environment.
And if we weren't to move forward with the program, then the $300,000 grant funds, those would, if that go
We
away.
can't give, no, they can
just
sit
sit
there, yeah,
So,
until we find something energy efficient to use them on, we can't return them, nothing. Cause my initial thing was just take it back and, you know, but the girl said, no, it's the way how they wrote it up when they first did it. And so cause at first the idea was maybe like redo all the windows around here and the ventilation is that, no, it can only be used in the warehouse.
I would suggest only, as my final thought, a renaming, maybe the housing choice voucher annex
Rather than the warehouse.
Yeah.
Just my suggestion.
Yeah, they are like that.
I agree with Kevin, though, if you're in the process of, like, you have an architect,
Mhm.
you know, it would be nice to kind of at least like at a high level, design the whole space.
Mhm.
So that you know you're building something that fits
Yeah,
with
it's
the
worthwhile.
overall plan, you know.
You're already gonna be spending the money, so
Yeah, you might as well go ahead and get all
only
of
open the wall once.
Right.
it. Yeah, well, that's why we said we gonna have to bring him back out, cause I think he misunderstood when, we was talking about it. And then too, we did have some other people participating who really didn't wanna get rid of the warehouse model. So I think that's where some of the confusion came in, but the warehouse model is going away. So,
The only thing I would say is like, you know, cubicles sometimes like you just hear cubicle and you're like, oh, you know. But, you know, WeWork has some really cool like glassed in like mini offices. And I wonder if there's any way to you know, have something along those lines. It's like black metal and then glassed in, and you know, I just don't know how much more expensive that actually is, but it looks just so much cooler and you just feel better
and
walking into
see,
that space.
that's my problem. I'm a little extravagant, so I like it to look a certain kind of way, as opposed to the cubicles we have now.
Yeah.
And so we've been looking at a lot of different plans, and Gabby got a local vendor who also can create the cubicle the way that you want it. So we are also gonna have a meeting with them to kind of look at, you know, what some of the choices could be if we go with some cubicles back there. Once we talk to the architect and look at the other space again, then we'll know what is the best way to go. But again, all of this information is to get the boards, like to know what we doing right now, what type of direction we going in, you know, and what's coming. So that you'll know that we making all these changes, we trying to, you know, do things to make it more efficient and just better here at the agency. But again, it's better to test it first before you just, you know, try to implement it, because it could be something in there that you don't know that's gonna come up, this will be a problem later. So I only got one more, then I'm gonna let y'all go. I know y'all like, I'm so tired of her. But anybody have any more questions on the warehouse?
I just had one question.
Okay, yeah.
So with the relocation of the human resource department, it sounds like it hasn't necessarily been conceptualized where it would officially go, but do you have the confidential space that is needed for that department if you move them out of the warehouse into some location within the primary building?
Yes, yeah, I feel it'll actually be more secure than where they at now, because they at the back where you come in.
Oh yeah,
to-
no, next to the vending machine, yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, we have a good space for them. It would be very confidential, very secure, and it still make it where the employees should not, you know, have any issue with going to the human resource office. So,
Okay.
Human resources get like 3,000 square feet per person.
any more questions about
I have a
that?
question. So you said that you're thinking of the housing program. Would that be John's?
Mhm, yeah, section 8.
So he's gonna get a big old desk, right?
Energy efficient.
You can do it like Bloomberg and just put your desk right in the middle.
See,
See,
I'm not going to,
It was mention your name.
I'm not gonna get into it.
We put it on one of them little things, how the people do the videos and it just go around the whole time. So it's like Jonathan just keep looking at his staff, but, Gabby, if you can pull up the one for the red properties. This one was emailed out to everybody, it was late, so it wasn't in the, packet, but Gabby's gonna pull it up. And just a few quick things about this one. So as part of the strategic goals, I made a commitment to the board to look at all of the properties and come up with a plan for them. So at first I was thinking about doing a plan per property, but after I really looked into our properties, we have different funding sources that cover so many properties, so it's better to do it per funding source. So this report is for the red properties that are under multifamily. The one that we're gonna use to discuss it is Selena's family. But the same issues apply to all of the RAD properties in the portfolio except Montecito Watson. That's why it's not included in. So just a little background. The agency had public housing units. They decided they wanted to do a RAD conversion. So for a RAD conversion, you take your public housing units that are under an ACC contract. You put in an application with HUD to convert them to a rental assistance demonstration program, which is RAD. So that you can go from a public housing funding source to a Section 8 based funding source in the multifamily program. The reason for that is because every year the ACC come out and it's really volatile. So like, because it's through the appropriations. So some years you'll get a lot of money, some years you'll get less money. And so to try to stabilize the housing, they start promoting everybody to do a RAD conversion. There are a lot of ways to do a RAD conversion, but the top two that people use is what's called PBRA, project-based rental assistance. For that one, you keep your staff that's in place, you do work with a 5-9, you send out a voucher every month to HUD to get paid, and you do not have to go through your Section 8 program. The other one is PBV, so it's project-based vouchers. And you go through the Section 8 program, they maintain the waiting list. They send you the people to move in and out, they do rent reasonable, all this type of stuff for the property. But most agencies do not use that one unless they have a really strong Section 8 department. So for HACM, they went with PBRA, I believe, I'm not sure, probably because some of the issues they was having with the Section 8 department, and probably also in an attempt to not to have to dismiss so many of the staff that were already working here. Either way, it's a profitable way, it's just depending on the rents and things like that that you get when you first sign up for the program. So the RAD properties that we have are RAD PBRA. So every month, the property managers are responsible for sending in all of the billing. Go to the next slide, Gavin. So the RAD conversion. The RAD conversion was initiated to maintain affordable housing and create financial stability. That's why everybody went to RAD, because it's supposed to be like a cash cow. Most time when you take your property and you go RAD, they have to have their own audit because they start generating over $750,000 a year. So it's supposed to make money. You go to the next one, Gavin. The RAD properties here are East Salinas, South County, Salinas family, East Salinas, and Gonzalez family. They got a 20-year contract through the RAD program. And so when you sign up, you pick your rent that you come in with, and then that rent gets an OCAP adjustment every year based on what HUD sends out as the rating, so that you get rent increases. When they did the RAD program here, they also layered it with tax credit. So that's why you got CTAC on there, because it's a tax credit restrictions on property as well. So now all of these units have the RAD restrictions under multifamily housing. Plus, they have the tax credit restrictions under the tax credit program. Now, personally, I don't know why they did the tax credit restrictions, because tax credit rents are really low. And most people who did tax credit, they did that because they was redeveloping all of the properties. Well, that didn't happen here. The properties had some small renovation work did, but it was no true redevelopment or rehab work did. So really, they could have did it without the tax credit. And so that would have gave us more room and less restrictions as far as the rents and things like that. Plus, when they did it as tax credit, they had to give up part of the ownership. So the housing authority owned all these properties 100%. When they layered it with tax credit, now HDC is the owner, and they got 0.01% ownership. And then NEF and Associates has 99.99% ownership of the property. So anything we want to do on the property, we have to ask their permission. But it's our, it started as our property, our land, and things like that.
I always assumed that we were, that we did like a decent renovation, but not really. So we,
Only one of them had part of the units renovated, the rest of them still exactly the same. At least that's what my data got on there, and I got that from Nora and
Yeah,
then property
that's
management.
strange, right? Like, what's the point?
Exactly, because it was like, why even do, we still could have went rad. I did a rad conversion in Alabama. Kept complete ownership, no outside financing had to be did, just increased all the rents and changed it to that platform and the housing authority still owned it. Here they did it more like a model when they doing developments, but it wasn't necessary to do it like that because you wouldn't get in nothing for it.
I think it's because the person who had the expertise in doing stuff here, when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Yeah. Cause out of the 80, like Elgin have 50 units. 3 of the units is tax credit and all the rest of them is on the RAD contract. So what, but that's neither here nor there. That's just one of the issues that we're gonna deal with trying to make the properties make money again. So you can go to the next one, Gavin. I kind of just went through telling you about the ones that make Selena's family RAD because there's 3 different properties that make it. You have Elgin, you have Ocean View. Gabby, you can go to the next one. And then you have North Ridge Plaza, which have 3 different street addresses. So all of these are considered as Selena's family RAD. And so all together, let's see, that's 80, 40, 50, 90, 170 units. Now, another thing too, when you do a RAD conversion, you can do a separate contract on each one of these properties. It didn't have to be one contract, but they chose to make it one contract. But it could have been 3 separate half contracts, which again would have gave you a little more freedom on that. And then if the one that you did do some rehab work on, that could have been the only one with tax credits, and the other one could have just been regular RAD. But that's just something, for us for the future, if somebody ever asks you about a RAD contract. Go to the rent computation, the next one. So the rents are set by whatever base rent they did when they first did the conversion, and then you get the old cap, which is the operating cost adjustment factor. Every year, HUD come out and they say, you got 7%, you got 3.5%, you got a 5.4% increase. And so you look at whatever the current rents are, and then that's how much you can increase them by. Now, this is not a true 7%. This is 7 divided by 100, so it's like 0.07. That's why the rents don't go up that much. And then basically affect the contract rent. So you have to use that with the utility allowance to get your new gross rent. So for all the properties, on top of having this restriction and issue with the rents, we also have that tax credit layering. So every year around April, HUD comes out and they say, these are the tax credit rents for your area. So we have to look at both of them, and we have to be in compliance with both of them to make sure that the property doesn't get in trouble. So this year, the tax credit rent, an efficiency is $1,390. A 1-bedroom is $1,490. A 2-bedroom is $1,788. 3-bedroom, $2,065, and a 4-bedroom is $2,304. We're gonna talk about that a little bit more, but as you can see, we are already drastically under the fair market rents for this area. This is even below Section 8 rent reasonable. If we did a Section 8 rent reasonable on any of these units, this would go up at least $800 or so, maybe more on on the efficiency, but the 1, the 2, and the 3, it'll be a dramatic increase. So go to the next slide for me, Katie. On this one, it's just a little financing information about the properties. You see most of the rent come from the RAD properties. So in 2022, we got 1.4 million for RAD, 172,000 for tax credit. 2023, we got 1.5 million for RAD, 202,000 for tax credit. So that lets you know the unit mix, because you only have like 3 units here, they're on the tax credit. So all of the money is coming from the RAD program. And this is the only money that the property get. This is the only income that's really from the rents. We do have some replacement reserves in there. They've been going up gradually. And then we have a lot of debt on the property. So the pie chart is for the property debt. We got $4 million in loans that have an annual payment of $233,000. And then we have soft debt of $21 million on the property. And all of this have to be paid for through the property income, which is solely based on the rental income that we receive based off the RAD rents and the tax credit rents. And the capital expenses also in the past, they've been taking it out of the operating money. But really, a request should be made to the investors to use the reserves to pay for that. Or a request to the HUD multifamily office if we were the owner to pay for that, so it wouldn't come out of operation. So that's another reason why the properties weren't making any money, because when they were having the capital expense, they was taking it out of the rental income instead of going back to the budget, asking the investors for permission to go ahead and release the money from the reserves. You can go to the next one, Gavin. This is the way that, the property management company, property management department used to be set up, and that's what we was talking about a little while ago. Director, 2 supervisors, each one of them supervising half of the staff, a maintenance supervisor, an asset manager, and then, the supervisor and all of the maintenance staff, and the asset manager was just kind of doing a little bit of everything. So that's how it was. Go to the next one, Gavin. So these are the key issues for all of the RAD properties. All of the RAD properties except Montecito Watson have the same issues. The first one is the ownership. We need to look at becoming the owner of the property again. A lot of them getting close to the 15, 10, 11, 12-year mark where we need to do something with the tax credit investors. So we'll start having a look at that. The amount of rent that's charged. We tried to do the market to market program, but we did them all at one time, so HUD denied it, but they did come back and say, send them one by one so they can revisit it. So we got some rent studies and we sending that in one by one on each property. If we can get one property approved, that'll be the platform for the rest of them. So we're working on that now. The capital expenses, staff know if it's a capital expense that we need to get permission from the investors so that we can use the reserves to do that and don't take that out of operations. The operations, that's what we was talking about changing, like how many managers, how maintenance working, utilizing yard and stuff like that to make all of that better, and training the staff and what's the difference between normal wear and tear and damages that need to be recaptured from the tenants. Go to the next one, Gavin. The other one is other funding streams. We need to look at grants and other funding that's available in our area to help offset some of the costs at these properties. Each one of them have a different type of population. So if there are other HUD grants and things that we can apply for that can help to pay for some of the costs at the properties, even down to the rehab. They got some new little grants and stuff like that we might be able to use. We need to do better budget forecasting so that way we are proactive instead of reactive when we have capital expenditures, when we have staff issues, and just when we know a shortage is coming, because we have time to prepare. And then the staffing, we kind of already talked about that, the changes we needed to make in the staffing. And so each one of these, I gave them their own slide. Gavin, you can kind of just go through them to show like what we need to do, what suggestions we're making, what some of the changes we're gonna make to try to get the property situated better. So each one of those key issues has its own slide that really explains all of that in great detail. Stop at the risk and reward slide, Gavin. Okay, so this is the risks and rewards. Like what else is gonna happen to us from making these changes? We don't have any risks associated with making any of these changes. All of them fall under whatever rules and regulations adhere to that particular property. All of these changes are in compliance with the union, with HUD, with multifamily. So we don't have any risk. We have nothing to lose. But if you can see like how the chart is, the rewards, really with the changes that we're making, the person that's most impacted is the resident. Because you can see the authority will get more affordable housing and financial stability, but then that builds on what happens for the employee. So the employee gets increased training, increased knowledge, streamlined processes, promoting a paperless environment. That's really good for them. So then that benefit goes out to the resident who gets improved communication, ease of meeting tenant obligations, increased property curb appeal, improved living conditions, and sustainable housing. Cause some of them wonder like, is this sustainable? How long they gonna be able to keep me here? Why they not doing certain repairs, things like that. So as we make these changes that show no risk to the agency, the rewards just grow as it expands from the authority to the employee to the resident. And so overall, it'll help us to complete our mission while making the changes necessary to improve the property and make it better for the community. And you can go to the next one, Gabby, it's the last one. So the conclusion is that we really just went through the key issues about it. We already kind of changed some of the staff and we talked about that. We already talked to the union, making sure all of that is in compliance, so we don't have any information or any problems with them. We're gonna use this little time period to collect data and see how impactful it is, or if we need to add something or take something away. And even though Selena's family rad was the primary property that we talked about, the plan was the same for all of those properties, so the issues are the same at all of those properties. So as we test one, we're really testing the others too. And so this is kind of like the strategic plan for the RAD portfolio. And what I'm gonna do is I will have one for multifamily that'll take care of the two other properties that's in multifamily that don't have the tax credit layering and some of these same issues. And then we'll do one for the FLC, that'll be grouped together because a lot of them got some of the same issues. And then our tax credit properties that have PDVs on them. Cause it's checking with all the properties just to see what was going on. It was really consistent per funding type, what the issues were. So if it was an issue on one property, it was an issue on the next one. Like with the PDVs, for example, rental increases had not been did in the last 2 or 3 years. So they still had the same rents that they were paying in 2019 at each property. So that was one reason none of those properties were making money. So instead of doing one per property, our strategy needs to be per funding source. And so that's how the other PowerPoints will be laid out. But that's kind of it. I know I just took up all y'all time. I do apologize. I was trying to get all my stuff in. But do anybody have any questions or anything?
That's very good explanation. I mean, there are just so many different elements that needs to be done, and it's good to have it
No, thank you.
explained thoroughly.
I think one thing I would like to see is like a little bit more of a like quantitative analysis of like, hey, here's the expenses per unit for this property. And like, why do we think those are running high? You know, for example, like if you do that analysis, you would probably see, hey, we're charging 2 property managers for this 200 unit property, right? And like, you know, what are the other things that are causing that number to be high? And going even just below total expenses, you know, what's our maintenance expense per property, right? And that might flag some things as well. Obviously, you need to take the context, like some have, you know, some are older properties, whatever, but it'll show you, hey, this property, it might just be time to renovate this property, you know? And so the one caution that I have, like, I'm still a little uncomfortable, like, if I was in any real estate environment outside of the government, I don't think there's any world in which I think it's a good first step to have like this, hey, clearly there's, you know, there are common factors that are impacting the finances for these RAD properties. There's gonna be common factors impacting the other categories you mentioned. That's like a really good like paradigm to have. And it's gonna drive what you do with these properties. And honestly, other properties, they may honestly be very similar. But pretty much like, you know, essentially we are in the real estate business and we have a portfolio of assets. And there's not any real estate entity out there that would not have a business plan for every asset. Like this is how, you know, this is how we are going to get this asset to break even, right? So I do think that that is important. I know that it's a lot, I mean, it's just a lot. I mean, how many properties is it?
Well, no, it's easily done, but what it is with the shape that this organization is in, before we can even get to that, we need to get rid of these fundamental issues.
For sure.
So all of the funding sources each have like 7 or 8 different fundamental issues that's gotta be addressed. Now, once we address those, then we're gonna see the cash flow for each property. and see, which one is cash flowing, which one is still running negative. And so that is more into what you're talking about, where we just pick one property and go, okay, this one is still having an issue and let's make a plan for this one. But you can't see what that issue is until you get rid of these fundamental issues that like across the board.
Well, I just wanna tease out, like, it could be maybe, because you can also see, like, you can analyze expenses right now. The revenue side, I agree, a lot of the things we talked about here would be, on the revenue side, but you can still analyze the expenses, and so then it becomes a question of like, is it a capacity issue? And if it's a capacity issue, but obviously we're trying to hire somebody for property management, but theoretically, if we have somebody doing asset management, like this should be their job.
I think this is what they should do, and it
This
is
should be
a
their-
capacity issue, because another thing that's in out there that I didn't.
I know you do not have the time to make a
Well,
business plan for every unit, so like,
unfortunately, I walk around kind of with one, but we can get money for vacancy loss. But we've never gotten it here because the managers, I guess, have not been trained to get it. So you have to go into the system once a unit becomes empty and maintenance work on it. But when maintenance turn it over to you, that's called the lease up period. If you go into the system and you mark that date and you say maintenance is through, now it's in lease up. When they submit the billing, they can submit for vacancy loss payments, but we haven't done that. And then with the ledgers themselves, all of the tenant account errors that was in there, all of the write-offs.
Yep.
Part of that was all of that was capacity, but it started from whoever set them all up in the beginning, the way how they did it. Cause when you go to RAD, you can't start billing until January of the next year. So most people try to convert like in November, December, so they're only missing 1 or 2 months worth of payment and 1 or 2 months of vouchers, they have to go in as a zero voucher. Well, here, they committed earlier in the year, so they had all of these vouchers every month. They were supposed to be zero, but they were sending them in as payments. And so that was the beginning of all of the ledger problems. So it's a little bit of everything, but I think like once we kind of, get through some of these, then we can look at each one individual and we can have a plan and say, this is the plan for East Salinas. This is the plan for South County. This is what we noticed at Gonzales. And that'll include the expenses and all of this, because again, all of this stuff is like phase 1 of this process. So we kind of breaking property management down the same way we did section 8.
that process. Any other comments on this? I think it's really,
Very
it's
good.
really moving in the right
Yes.
direction, which is great.
Got a better understanding of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just I hate taking up so much of y'all time, but I was able
That's
to
good.
put this stuff together.
No, they're,
No, this is worth the time.
Definitely.
Yes.
okay,
Well, that's it for my report, so
so we're gonna move on to item 7, which is the information items. And the first one was the human resources report.
And I just had one thing I wanted James to touch on. I don't know if the commissioners had a question, but James, can you talk about the executive team hires and the progress in the workers' comp claims?
So good evening. We did partner up with CPS HR Consulting as our headhunter for the executive positions that we do have open. I notated on there, we roughly received 16 to 17 applications. We are interviewing this week and next week. Some promising candidates that we actually selected, Zalika and myself. And hopefully we'll get, someone selected with them by the end of next week or so. I did kind of talk to the recruiter from CPS HR and kind of wanted some feedback as far as the people or the candidates who have been declining to either come over here. And some of the feedback that she received was the commute from out of state to California, relocation expenses, or just California is just too expensive in general. I did put there between $100,000 to $150,000 as far as kind of a pay cut overall, just like an average kind of amount. She's saying that candidates don't want to have those reductions kind of taken away from them right now, and especially living in California and the cost of it from the cost of living side. But hopefully we'll get those strong candidates here. For workers' compensation, I do want to notate that we have significantly dropped 36% decrease as far as our workers' comp claims in comparison to from 2022. In 2022, I noted it on there, we had 35 claims that we filed. 2023, we had 25 claims, and then now in 2024, in November, 16 claims so far. So we've been making significant impact since the launch of our safety initiatives at the beginning of the year. So, the progression is working as far as getting people involved and monitoring these reports and auditing, just across the agency overall. And that kind of summarizes my little report, unless there's any questions from the commissioners.
Not to cross any uncrossable lines, James, but of the 16 to 17, how many declinations were there of that group that were citing some of these reasons that you indicated?
She was saying about 6, 7 that she had received, and they're coming from all over, because she has posted it out, like from NARO, PATA, the housing advisory group, like different like professional sites for housing authorities. And people just, are reaching out. She's also did like a massive blast to all her contacts as well. And those are the responses that they're giving her.
So about 30% of the total applicant population.
Yeah.
So leaving 60% that are still viable candidates.
Right.
Excellent.
And then we also had to factor into, Salinas is, more the agriculture community. So people are either in the Bay Area or kind of going, down south or ready for these kind of progressive cities. But, Salinas is one of those little valleys that a lot of people don't really know of. So from a, cost perspective or living wise, people don't really want to kind of come over here. That's kind of been the challenges throughout the year as far as these two positions. And then also the cultural fit too. Find the right person. I know that in past year, we've been talking about the revolving executive kind of positions and this door that we've been having. We want to maintain stability within the team.
Commissioner Anderson, did you have a question? My question was just, what is the salary range now
So we
for
did,
the property manager, director of property manager?
we did increase it on top of my head.
And while you're looking for that, Zalika, how many units do we have total that they would be managing?
Property management is 1283. For development. How many units y'all got over there?
1,500.
Hmm.
So 1,500, but that includes some of the ones that are managed by HACM.
Well, that's the ones all together with help. So I don't know, maybe like another 300 just on the HDC side.
And like how much does somebody with a portfolio of 1,500 units, what's the kind of, I guess I have two questions. One is like, how much are the directors of property management making in, kind of similarly situated housing authorities? Like where do we stack up, would you say?
We stack up really good because property management go up to $150,000. So that stacks up really well, because even like down in LA and stuff like that, they have a much larger portfolio to get that type of pay. So as far as the property manager job, it's really just, we did get some pretty good candidates, I think. People just talking about relocation to California. The salary difference to me really came in with the development position. Because those, they don't really have like so many units, but they have so many projects that they're working on. And so a lot of them work for the private industry. They make 300,000 and up. And so then I think what we had like 160, 170, something like that for development.
Yeah, up there.
Do you guys do like a comp study? Like, do we have a comp study?
From the development side, it was more from starting at 160 all the way up to like 250,000.
In terms of you so you have a comp study that says that's the.
And then the
Yeah,
agency helps us
from
too.
the consulting from HR, yeah.
Mhm.
So that's that's for the development. From the property management side of it, it's more or less kind of from like 130 is roughly what I got from her.
And two, like with the development people and a lot of the candidates, when they look at Monterey County and how much the housing is, they could be making 150 in Kansas and they want 300 here. Because they saying how much the rent and all of that stuff is.
Yeah.
So it's not that all of them actually losing $150,000 in salary. They losing the affordability of their current salary as it compares to what they think they'll be able to afford here on the salary that we offering.
I mean, that kind of speaks to. I mean, in some ways, it almost needs to be a more like regional approach, like somebody who's already living here,
Right.
you know, but you're saying that, like, for example, like in Santa Cruz, the director of property management might be making in this range.
Right, and I did reach out to kind of Santa Cruz to kind of see if they have any pool on their end. I know that some of them are looking for a property manager themselves. They just kind of hired the housing programs director recently.
And they got a development position they just posted too.
So they're smaller, they're kind of almost similar to us, they're non-union, but they're about 60 employees plus compared to us, we're like 73. But that's kind of like where they're at too, is the housing kind of background that they don't have. The leadership component is that it's there. Just like we have a candidate that Slick and I were looking at, she's a doctor of, I'm not too sure where, but she works at COCMB as a policy admin. And she's kind of wanted to come over here, but we had to factor in her experience in housing management and also with accommodation leadership as well. From an analytical side, it looks good, you know, from paper. So then hopefully we'll get some good quality candidates that we interview in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, there was one person that we was interviewing, I had a really good looking resume. They actually won some awards before for some of their affordable housing, so they say anyway, you gotta check and make sure, but it's just the California pricing. And then Santa Cruz and Santa Clara pay more than us for all of the positions, but for Santa Cruz, I talk to the ED over there all the time. Even though they pay more, they still were having the same hardship we were in filling positions, because it took them a year to fill their Section 8 position. And I think their development position is still open too, even though it's a higher salary than what we paying. So it's just like the area, when you look at the housing and stuff like that. And then it's not as urban as some of the people would like it to be, but I'm very confident that we're gonna get the right people in these positions. People who will help us go to the next level and be able to work here and enjoy the pay and the company and make a meaningful change for the organization.
Yeah, Yuri, go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess I do, my question is still there. I want to be hopeful as well in what you're calling confidence. And I know you and James have your interviews, but I'm just, at what point do you have to have a conversation about mitigating expectations and being willing to underfill from a skill perspective and train up? Because if you're telling me that Santa Cruz's position has been vacant for a year and they're paying more than we are, like, that doesn't make me feel like we're going to be able to get a candidate who has the qualifications we expect to have the skill level we do, or that we're looking for.
Well, James and I have been talking about that, because we look for transferable skills as well, but we also look at what is really needed for the position with the team that we have now and how much training it would cost us and what type of candidate that looks like. When we did our own applications, we wanted to go a certain period of time trying to attract people just as the housing authority. That didn't really pan out. So now we got, and we want to give the recruiter time to kind of get some positions, get some applications out to see if it was the same thing that we were thinking as far as with the industry and the environment. And so after we do these interviews on these, I think 16 people, we'll kind of see where we at, and at that time, come back to the table to make some hard choices on how we need to move forward so we can fulfill these positions, because these positions need to be filled in order for us to take the agency to where it needs to be.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this one has been my biggest concern, you know, is just like the depletion of senior leadership, you know, over time, and the need to cross-pollinate with some really, it doesn't have to be every position, but we need at least one or two like strong, experienced people who like have domain expertise and who can like infuse that into the organization and you know, sort of like a sports team, like sometimes you need to go out and bring in the free agent signing, you know, spend the money on it, because honestly, like when I look at, we're losing, how much money are we losing on our portfolio a year?
Ooh, I don't know the exact number, but it is a tremendous loss that we've been having for the last couple of years. It's just now kind of starting to come into the positive as far as financially speaking.
Like on our limited partnerships, it's. I guess in all the properties, it's maybe
Yeah, all
$1.5
the,
million or something.
is the big one?
It looks like before depreciation. But anyway, you know, so we're losing $1.5 million a year. Like if we brought in somebody, this is my case here, if we brought in somebody and we're talking about spending another 50 grand or something, I guarantee you that they will save us 50 grand, like across the $1.5 million that we're losing, you know, on all these properties. So yeah, I mean, at some level, I know we have financial constraints, but at some level, you also have to look and say, hey, the market's telling us something, and then you either go in the direction that Gary's talking about and say, hey, like, we're gonna accept the fact that like we can't get it, or we have to spend more money. And you know, when I hear you talking about somebody at CSUMB who has a doctor, which is awesome, obviously a smart person. But like, I'm a reasonably smart person, and like, if you tried to have me run property management, it would be a total disaster. Like, you know,
Right.
and so that just makes me nervous and
Well, that was just one of the local people, but we're looking at the whole thing, but it's not just the money. Because these higher salaries, they wanna hire, they don't wanna come in the office, they wanna work remote, and we're not remote yet, you know. They, it's a lot of amenities that they asking for that we just not there, we wanna be there, we trying to get there. But we just not there yet, so it's not just the money, it's this package, cause we had a really good candidate, I really wanted to hire this person. They wanted to make in excess of $200,000, I was like, okay, maybe we can work with that. They wanted a hybrid schedule. They wanted to leave early on the days they did come. They wanted tuition reimbursement. It was like 3 or 4 other things, and I was just saying, I cannot put a package like that together. That'll kill the morale of everybody else that's here, because we are not at that point. And so we tried to kind of, take away a little stuff and work with them. They wanted the car, all this, what we could do. But they were just adamant that they had to have everything on that list. And so I told them that, we was gonna have to look in another direction.
And I also want to add to that too, the candidates that we've been having this past year, Link and I have been truly transparent as far as starting from like a scratch, from the bottom up and kind of building the team, because of the history of HACM. So a lot of people do their due diligence, kind of research the financial aspects of it, and they go like, okay, what am I really getting myself into? And then looking at everything, and it's like, oh, I don't want to do that. It's just kind of like running your own business. It's like a startup.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like, that's what the message that we're sending is, there is going to be a future for HACM. We just need to get the right people in the position so we can start from the ground up again.
And the last thing that I'm gonna say about the positions too, and I hate to say it because I hate somebody apply to me, but it's kind of apply to people sometimes. You have these people that they've been running these departments, they're so successful, they are known in the industry. But for so long, they've had this 50,000 foot view, and they got this fantastic staff and this fantastic lady that really take care of everything for them, so they don't really know all of the things like they should know.
Yeah.
And so when they apply here, even when we say, okay, we're gonna give you the salary, well, what kind of team I got? Oh, you got a good team, they just starting out. Well, that team can't support me because I'm so high level that I'm gonna fail if I come in with a team like this, because I'm not used to having to go through all those steps anymore. I'm not used to having to, start at this particular point or whatever. And so that caused concern for them, because people with a really good reputation, they don't want to mess up their reputation and come here and get fired or don't produce or something, because they used to working at a different type of level. And like you know, like me, when I came, I worked in the housing authority. I feel like I'm a little housing authority myself. You know, I've been all through the housing authority. So when it was issues with the staff and it was issues with finance and it was issues with this, I knew I had the expertise to get down as low as I needed to go to bring the staff up, so it wasn't such a concern with saying, well, I'm gonna come here, they gonna fire me in a year, and people gonna be like, Zalika don't know what she doing, and then, cause you know, the housing community is senior large, but it's small, everybody know everybody, so they do consider that too. But coming somewhere that we growing, we doing really well, we got a lot of good partnerships, we going in the right direction. Some things are moving a little slower than others, but you know, the truth of our situation is the truth of our situation. And so we need somebody that's gonna embrace that, embrace the team and try to help us get to that point.
Yeah.
So that's a, you know, an issue too.
And prime example was Mike Underwood, our previous director of finance. That was his feedback to us, was that he had a team that reported to him directly in other positions that he had other than HACM, that he really didn't need to kind of worry about the day-to-day operations. It was more the strategic, broader goals that we had, which, you know, as us as directors, we need to do, but we have to get our hands dirty as well.
That's important. Yeah, look, since we give them a little kudos, we can segue to Gina because she's coming into the finance department. She's doing a great job. She's really very knowledgeable of finance. And so she's able to teach her staff and bring them up. The whole finance department has improved and came up from her being here. Those are the type of directors that we got to have so that they can empower the team and bring them to a higher standard.
Okay, any other comments? HR report? Okay, we're gonna move on to the finance report. Any highlight on that one?
No, because she's gonna do her the spotlight, so I didn't really have anything on that one.
Well, I don't have too much, I just two items need to mention, because if you look at the HACM, the net gain, it's 7 million. The 7 million is not really we have a net gain 7 million, because we have a PDM, the grant 2.8 million. That grant we just put into the revenue. But actually there's all the expense will go to the capital asset. It's not show on the income statement. So you see the revenue 2.8, you see the net income 2.8. And then also last year, Section 8 got a shortfall payment. And in July, the new fiscal year, we received 3.5 million. So that's related to last year. If auditor want to reclass to last year, probably they are going to do that. But right now it's sitting in our book, a new fiscal year. So 2.8 plus 3.5, that will be 6.3 million. So that's not really the net income, but it's a sum of the revenue.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything, any questions or comments on the finance report? Okay. Moving on to the property management report.
No comments, unless it's any questions.
Questions from commissioners on the property management report? I had a quick question. Looked like there were a few where maybe the work order days to complete. Like the average days to complete was maybe creeping back up on some of these. I'm on page 103 of the PDF. You know, obviously there could be certain work orders that you gotta order a part or whatever, but I think there are some where it's like 18 days on average for each slowness family to have. Just curious, like if there's a story there.
I may. So in talking to the maintenance supervisor, we kind of had to sit back again with the staff and let them know that some of these are follow-up work orders where we have multiple items and we're either waiting on a part or we have to go back and do additional work. And so we're trying to retrain the staff and teach them that, the data that you put into Yardi is really how we get these numbers. So, if you have a work order for multiple items and you completed half of those items, you went and conducted an inspection on the other item, and now you determine you order a part, close that work order, put your notes on it, and when your part comes in, now it's, time to follow up with the secondary portion of the work order, and that can be the following business day, because HD Supplies or a Home Depot, they can go get parts, and so forth, and so on, and so sometimes they've been leaving them open and we're waiting for parts that are not available or currently in stock.
So just to kind of add to that, you already have a feature called a work order follow-up. So let's say you got work order 999 and you complete everything, but I don't know, you need a refrigerator. And so of course you have to order it. You can close that work order and then it's a little button you click and it'll make a follow-up work order 999A. And it won't start tracking until you go back in and activate it after you actually get it. So that way you see how much time it took you to do the initial repair. And then it's, the follow-up repair is calculated once you receive whatever part or RFP. And that's already in the Yardi system, so they just need to click the. And also, one good thing about that, if anybody ever looks up that work order, it automatically brings up any follow-ups. So you can see all of them in the chronological order of how they took place. So make sure the staff get trained on that. And maybe that'll help with the number of days they have stuff.
I mean, making sure that people do that and don't use it, obviously becomes super important. Cause we're, the goal is not to just get the number on the sheet of paper down, it's to actually make the service better. But, there's very few things on a multifamily property that, especially when you have on-site maintenance, that should take 3 weeks to fix, right?
Yes.
Yes, like if you gotta order something, but even that, I mean, a lot of that stuff comes in pretty quick.
Yeah, and I think just a few of those were staff really just not closing it the day that they completed the work order. And, we had to remind them that, it's important to do all those functions in the system that day.
Yeah, I'm just looking on here, I'm seeing 18, 24, 16, 18, so just something to keep in mind. Okay, we're gonna move on to the development report.
I didn't have anything for the development report. Do anybody have any questions about the development report?
Just remind me like which projects are like the nearest term to being able to like move forward, would you say?
Oh, well, really 3 of them. Greenfield, Selena's family over here on parcel B.
Yep.
And actually, the first phases of Division Street is a little closer than we thought.
Yeah.
We're still looking at some stuff for Rippling River, but those 3.
And with these, all
And
3
then
of
only
those?
count the home piece that we working on.
You have the one in King City?
King City and Fairview.
And all 3 of those would involve this kind of developer agreement that we're trying to ink right now, like that.
Those 3, well, 2 of them do, Selena's family and Greenfield, no other developments are tied to that agreement, because we want to leave ourselves free for what we want to self-develop and what we want to renegotiate.
Yeah. Any other questions about the development? Okay, housing program.
I do have some, Jonathan on the housing program report. Gabby, you'll pull up his second page, I think, the one with the, HAP information on there. The chart. Right there. And go up so they can see the month. So on this chart, this is where, Jonathan and his team keep up with our HAP payments and when we short, when we have money. And with the money we just had recaptured, we said we was gonna watch our budget authority very closely for when we ran short so that we could go ahead and ask for those funds. So everywhere where it was red, that was somewhere that we were short. We've gotten the monies, I think, for all of it. That was part of the money that Jen talked about, that 3 million, except the last two. So Jonathan, if you could explain that and what's going on with that and kind of walk them through that process. So that way you can see how we're gonna do next year to make sure that we don't fall into something that is gonna be detrimental to the program.
Right, so what happens is HUD tells us what our budget authority is at the beginning of the year. And when we talk about budget authority, we're specifically talking about the amount of HAP payments that are being made and the expenditures that go with that, the admin fees. And so what we actually are given by HUD, sometimes they give it to us a month in advance or 2 months in advance for our, what we had been spending historically based upon our budget authority. Sometimes we spend more in HAP payments to landlords than we get in from HUD. When that happens, we have a short, I don't want to use the term shortfall, but in essence, that is what, that is what it is. We have we put out more than we got in. And when that happens, that allows us to go to HUD and request our money from our HAP reserves, which was that's what that 14 million was in, our HAP reserves, so they can make us whole for the money, because other than that, that money would come from our admin fees. And so I believe as of the 12th of this month, we requested an additional $2,046,400 in order to cover what we were short.
And it's already been approved and should be in the bank account. So they pay out normally like 3 or 4 days later after the request is approved. So as long as we keep up with our spending and monitor our budget authority, we shouldn't have any problems.
And the closer we get to shortfall, she's given the direction that as soon as we get less than we put out, then we need to request that money back.
Yeah. Cause it's just an email request. You send in an email with your projection and they look at it and then they send the email back and they say, okay, based on your projection, we're gonna give you another 3 million, 4 million, something like that. And so that's how it come into play. And once you get that email, they let you know the money can be in your account in like 3 days, no longer than 5 days. So we don't have to worry about, coming into something and we don't have the money for the program to be able to continue. But that was all I wanted him to talk about, because I know with that money that they recaptured, I want to kind of let him walk you through the process of how we can easily get our money back, the things that we're looking at to make sure that it doesn't cause an issue for our clients.
It's an easy process.
Mm-hmm. It's real easy.
We've got like 738 families with vouchers searching. What's the, what's kind of the status on that? Like, how are they getting to the point where they've been searching for like a couple months? And do we think it's like have we oversaturated the market? Like, is it a lack of units available, or what do we think?
No to the oversaturating of the market. And of course, keep in mind, this was through the month of October, when right now it's probably closer to 300 people that are still searching, because
300 search?
the number that and I didn't look at it before I came in for this month, but I believe we have kicked out quite a few more. So actually,
I don't know, I think you're getting that mixed up with the total number of houses, because since September, we housed an additional 358 people. And then with the people searching, it was the 738, but a large, it was like 300 or something asked for extensions to go into 2025 because of the holidays. So that's probably where you got that number from.
Is there any we did something kind of like extraordinary in the truest sense, like it was not ordinary in terms of like trying to brief all these people and get them a voucher. And now they're out there, they've got a voucher. You know, if, what's the, we give them an extension or no?
Yeah, we did
We
listen.
give them an extension. I mean, like, is there anything that we need to do on a similar kind of like extraordinary basis to like provide
To kind of
support to
give
them?
What we did was we had the landlord, I guess, outreach.
It's really more about landlord issue.
We need to.
Because they was doing 5 and 6 people on each one of their houses, so people thought they had somewhere to stay. But they had set Raptors for 4 or 5 different people. And so that person was holding, then they selected a person, then that person all of a sudden found out, oh, I gotta go find somewhere else. And it kind of rolled into the holidays. So it's still moving, it's moving at a steady pace. I think after the holidays, we're gonna see a big surge of people coming back in. Because if the units are there, the desire is there, and now that we had the new landlords come in and we talked to them, the rents are leveling off because they had went up $1,000 or more on every unit, we couldn't pay that. So now that that's been kind of talked about and discussed, I don't think they're gonna have a problem finding anywhere to stay, they just need more time, so that's why we granted the extensions. And it's always a good sign if they want an extension and they're not trying to turn the voucher back in.
Yeah, and apologies for the, you know, for all the questions, but if you, like, most of these people, I'm assuming, are coming from like the mass
Mhm.
event, right? So what, how many days are we at this point from?
So the middle of November made 60 days. And typically, I'll say
You
this,
get 120.
the number that is hurting the most is our success rate, our early success rate. Because there's still a momentum that's happening. One of the things that I'm seeing is that some property managers are saying, okay, I have something in January. Do you want this unit in January? And of course, they're saying yes. And so, whereas typically you might have had more people or more units available than people looking, we've brought that number very close to each other. So, you know, we're doing our best to make sure that.
And we do have a lot of Raptors with future dates.
I was gonna say, they could submit a wrap them.
Yeah, we have them with the future dates on that, and then that stopped the clock on their voucher.
Right.
So they don't have to worry about losing or nothing, they just waiting for the other applicant to get out so they can move in, so we have a lot of those. Gabby actually got a folder full of, cause we kind of was peeking in to make sure they was meeting at 48 hours.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, it's a lot of them that got dates in December, like after Christmas and starting in the new year.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you guys went through a lot of effort and work to get those vouchers to people, and so you're just making sure that they are able to use them. So, yeah. Any other questions on housing programs?
Just clarification on.
I have one.
Yep.
What is the turnaround time when a person gets their RAFTA submitted? For the property to be examined, yeah, I mean, by the housing authority.
Now we're doing it at around 48 hours.
I think
That's
she's.
what I thought I heard. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that's what I heard. Okay, so if somebody did submitted a RAFTA, say last week at the beginning, well, not the beginning of this week, but sometime last week, their inspection could happen anytime.
Yes, we are even scheduling the inspections prior to the unit being ready. So if the RAFTA came in today on the 25th and they're saying it's ready on the 2nd, within 48 hours, we will have scheduled an inspection for the 2nd.
I
So
see.
on the 27th, that inspection for the second should have been scheduled.
Okay. Okay, so if they've got the RAFTA in, then, okay, and it's like it happened anytime, like after the holidays, probably, after Thanksgiving.
Not necessarily.
It could be sooner.
Yes,
Okay.
if they're ready, we're gonna try to get them inspected as soon as possible. Because our whole goal is to make sure that before we go into shortfall next year, that we're ready, that we have as many of these people housed, so HUD can't say, hey, stop, you know?
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. So on the next slide, on the CMAP slide, it was a little bit unclear on the two columns relative to the fiscal year delineation, so I was hoping you could just help me.
Sure, the next page.
The next
Gabby,
slide.
please.
So it's fiscal year 2024 score and then Q3 fiscal year 2025 score. And then
So that says Q3, I apologize, that should say Q1
Okay,
2020.
so it is 630 and 71. We're looking at, so the FY 2024 score was the previous.
Correct,
cumulative
that's,
score?
that's the score. That's the score for fiscal year 2025 Q1.
Okay,
And then the next meeting, you should have the score for fiscal year 2025 Q2.
got it.
That's a typo. I
Make
apologize.
sure I understood it correctly. Thank you.
Oh. Yeah, we talked about FSS.
Mhm.
Yes, sorry.
We need to talk about deconcentration. So Hans can know why we ain't get the point.
Okay, so-
Deconcentration.
That's a bonus. In order to,
Tell Dallas.
in order to get deconcentration, you need to be in a large metro area and you need to be able to show on a census tract level that your efforts are deconcentrating poverty. The problem with it, Monterey County happens to be one of the more affluent counties. And so you just don't have poverty rates at a level in which you can justify it unless you can look at it on the census tract level. And as of now, that's very, very technical, and we're not quite ready to go for those bonus points yet.
Thank you.
We are gonna do the property spotlight for Montecito Watson Brad.
Montecito Watson, it was a part of a red conversion, but no tax credits. The housing authority still own everything, well, HDC own everything outright, no rehab, none of that. So it does have its challenges, but it's different from the group that we was talking about earlier, and it's only 13 units.
And it's located in Monterey?
Is that one in Monterey, Andrew? Yes, okay.
When was it,
Because I see the seal right here.
Let's see, it went to red in 2016, but what year was it built? I have no idea, they don't have that on there. We'll have to, add that on there, cause I'm not sure, Andrew, can you look it up and tell us real quick?
that's fine, just curious, but, and then on this one, just like an example of the property management thing, like. The person who manages this, what else do they manage?
Portola Vista. So we have 64 units at Portola Vista plus the 13 here.
So they don't have the 87 units, that's under the old rule with the 80, with the 99 of this.
Any questions about, Montecito Watson?
I never knew that we had a.
Go back and put what year it was built on there. Cause we wanna know like what year it's built, what year it did any type of transition or conversion or whatever, and if it had rehab or something, what year that happened.
All right, it's time for director spotlight.
I have very short speech.
Oh, no.
I'm very exciting.
Jen, you gotta get up and.
You're an introductory.
Very exciting to join the agency. I never worked in housing authority. I learned a lot in the past 6 months. I enjoy work for Zulinka, work with our management team. It's really a good team for me. My background, I was educated in China and the United States. I work in different accounting positions, staff accountant, financial analyst, and manager. I met coworkers and managers with great insight and work experience. I have been benefit from their advice, their coaching. I follow them to try my best to make the workplace more reliable and productive. I enjoy work-life balance. I believe work hard, play hard. I like what I'm doing here. I expect you to see the agency's great success in the future. Yeah.
Jen has a CPA, she's had one for a long time. She's very quick, she learns very fast. The people from BDO love her, the auditors love her. She even caught the auditors in some mistakes. She just really quick, and she got a lot of leadership skills. Her team really welcomed her. That's been reciprocated. And then again, like I say, one thing I really like about it, even though she didn't have the housing, she's caught on to it so quickly. And when we did her interview, in the first interview, we talked about how she didn't have it. And so she was like, what would you like to see? I said, well, it's always good to have a learning plan for your learning curve. So when we had the second interview, she had created her a learning plan for her learning curve and had all the information in there on HUD and stuff like that. And that was really impressive and showed that she really wanted, to be a part of our team and stuff. And so the entire team, I've seen their skills improve as a whole since she's been here. And I see her taking the time to level them up. Not with the baby gloves, but actually getting them there and they're able to continually do it without her monitoring or micromanaging. So she don't like to talk about herself. I understand that, but she's a very welcome addition. She's doing a great job and she's extremely smart. So thank you.
Monica.
As her colleague, you are amazing. You really are. I'm impressed by the way she actually studies really, really hard at the housing part of it. So.
I have to say, because I say I was educated in China and the United States. This is two different cultures. In China, it's very competitive. It doesn't matter just in China, they run line. Even you're working with the Chinese company, Chinese people, people with the Chinese background here, they're very tough. That kind of tough is just say, it's not like a Zulinka, not like the James and the Jonathan. And I think that all the tasks they give to me or the test, for me, it's a friendly. I really experienced a very tough challenge. They want you to have so many things in a short time, there's no support. But here, whatever we do, we have support from Zulinka, from management team. And again, I feel comfortable to say, I say, I need the support, I need that, I can do something. I just say, I'm comfortable to saying that. In different culture, that is a difference, so.
Yeah.
I'm happy to work here.
Well, it's great to have you.
Yes.
We're excited to have you here. Let's see, I wanted to talk about performance evaluation. So we were going to do an executive director performance evaluation. And we were going to try to, first of all, I need to send it to everyone. So I think that's one of the benefits of having looked at the strategic goals tonight. But we were trying to think about potentially having like a special meeting. So I don't know, since we're here, are you guys, are you in a place where you can look at a calendar and give us a sense of availability for that? So let's see, today is, what is today, the 25th? And so, if we obviously need enough time for people to complete the performance evaluation. Let's see, could we do something like toward the end of the first week in December? Maybe Wednesday or Thursday.
I'm gonna be gone during the last week of December.
The first week in December?
First week or the last week?
The first week.
Are you thinking Wednesday evening? Is that your proposal?
That could be Thursday evening.
I'm available Thursday weekend.
Yuri, are you available Thursday the fifth? No.
Would this be like an afternoon or during the day?
Question.
How work schedules?
Yeah, I mean,
Sorry, question. Is this to confer as a board on what we send in, or is this to meet with Zulika to deliver the evaluation?
it's a good question. I think it's more to confer as a board on, you know, what we've sent in and what we want to sort of message to Zalika, and then also, you know, things like compensation, et cetera, and her contract. So to give me some marching orders so that I can go and execute on your will.
Okay.
Question following up on Yuri's question. Is there a self-evaluation that's been completed by Zalika that will be the foundation that we'll use for our grading rubric?
We will do one. We were originally gonna do this on the cycle, but we had talked about doing it on the cycle for the strategic plan. But Zalika would actually prefer to have it just kind of on the cycle that's in the contract, and so that's pushed up the timing somewhat. And so, yeah, she will put something together super quick, and then we'll get that out to everybody. That's a really good point. I think honestly, like, after work is probably better because people do have work schedules. You know, that week, I know Yuri and I have something on Wednesday evening. Friday nights are not ideal for meetings. Monday, I just don't know if Monday gives us enough time. I mean, it could potentially. What about availability on Monday night?
This is the second, Monday the second.
Yeah, Monday
Yeah.
the second, yeah.
You're flying out on Monday the 2nd.
They gonna meet without me.
Oh, okay.
I just gotta give them my evaluation, cause that's where they decide what they wanna do.
Okay, so they're meeting without you. Okay.
Yuri and Francine, are you guys available on Monday the second?
No.
We meet on.
No, I'm free. In the evening,
What time?
Yes.
Probably like around normal time, like 5. Yeah,
No.
Yeah.
Thursday would work.
Thursday, we're just
Thursday.
missing Yuri. What about Wednesday?
I'm available.
Wednesday, we have our thing,
I know, I was thinking about if I had to miss it.
and Tuesday's not an option. Are you getting sworn in on Tuesday?
I've got something on Tuesday, yeah.
Yeah,
it's like
me
a
too.
council.
Me too.
Well, our option is to do Thursday without Yuri, or to try to find a time.
Maybe everybody just look at their calendar and then kind of send some.
Is there,
There's
Accessible.
there a drop dead for this to get done? Like, is there a reason we can't look at the second week in December?
Second week is better for me.
Tuesday the 10th, yeah, I was looking at that.
Is that good for you?
Yes.
Tuesday the 10th, Yuri?
Not from me, no,
Yeah, I can do Tuesday the 10th.
I can't,
I can't do Tuesday the 10th. I could do Wednesday or Thursday.
yeah, I could do Wednesday, Thursday.
I can't do Thursday.
Can't do Thursday. What about Wednesday the 11th?
I can do the 11th.
As of right now, I cannot do the 11th.
Never mind, I lied. I can't do Wednesday.
I say that though, expecting this meeting to get canceled.
I mean, I can do Thursday the 12th. You can't do Thursday?
Not do
You can't
Thursday.
do Thursday. Man, brutal. You guys are brutal.
So I can do Thursday the 5th or Tuesday the tenth, everything else for the next 2 weeks in the evening would not be feasible. Are we needing to meet in person?
Yeah, remind me about the rules on that. This is the,
It would be an open meeting where the public has to come in,
well, it's,
Well, it's gonna be closed session.
but we still have to announce
Just
it
have to
and
start.
allow the public.
Yeah,
well,
but but having said that, it can be virtual as long as there is a publicly accessible location for the public to make comment and then exit.
you know, we're gonna, I think we have to go to a dual poll. So. All right, yeah,
We can't meet during the day, right?
I mean, I could meet during the day, yeah. I don't think it's gonna take forever, I think it's gonna take an hour.
It depends, yeah, I mean, days are definitely gonna be a bit more challenging than evenings for me.
Okay, dokie. Okay, well, that's all I had on that, and then we will to commissioner comments. There's my front page here. Oh, there we go, flip it over. Commissioner Anderson.
I just wanted to thank Zulik and the team for all the really great and interesting reports. I know you were apologizing about the power.
Well, no, I'm
No,
falling
wait.
back into bad habits.
No, babe,
I'm
I'm
falling-
gonna check it.
Oh, so sorry.
I'm supposed to just say, hey, does anybody have a commissioner comment? We used to do person by person, so. Does anybody have a commissioner comment aside from Yuri?
I do.
I wanted to apologize, for my tardiness. I went out of my apartment for a minute to check my mail before it got dark and started raining, and I didn't get back right on time. And I thought I had, a minute or so because sometimes we start late. Anyway, I apologize, and I will do my best never to do that again. Thank you. And I hope everybody has a very happy Thanksgiving.
Any other comments?
Thanksgiving, everyone.
Okay, I
For
did.
me, directionally, the agency is going so much better in a direction than it has for as long as I've been here, so kudos to you all, please keep up all of your hard and great work. It's very
Yes.
encouraging sitting here to see the amount of progress and move toward efficient operation. I'm really enthusiastic, thank you all.
Yeah, okay. I want to say thank you to Zivika and the staff for all the reports, excellent. I learned a couple of things today. Also want to congratulate Jamie Skinner on her employee recognition. That was in the agenda, and I also want to welcome Linda. I'm glad that I'm going by what Zivika had mentioned about you, how you have influenced your staff, you taught them, and that's something good to hear when you're involved with your staff and supporting them, and you're just new coming in. Because working as in accounting with finances and budgets, sometimes your mind can go crazy. But when you have people on the side of you and you're willing to teach them, that takes time. And for you to make time for that, that demonstrates something about you. So thank you. And everybody, happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. All right, we're gonna adjourn the meeting at 7:36 p.m.
We didn't have a meeting, but we would have to stay anyway.
My friend.
I saw the agenda, I was like, no resolution, no HTC meeting. Like a presentation.
I almost. Yeah.